All right, so this will be a quick video in which I go over the homework for 3.3. I'll go through the answers for 3.3.1 first. So 1 is hasty generalization, 2 is weak analogy, 3 appeal to unqualified authority, 4 slippery slope, 5 no fallacy, 6 false cause, 7 appeal to ignorance, 8 no fallacy, 9 hasty generalization, 10 appeal to unqualified authority, 11 no fallacy, 12 slippery slope, 13 either a weak analogy or no fallacy, could be the one, 14 appeal to ignorance, 15 false cause. For 3.3.2, the answers are 1 false, 2 true, 3 false, 4 false, 5 true, 6 true, 7 false, 8 false, 9 true, 10 true. For 3.3.3, the answers are 1 hasty generalization, 2 missing the point or false cause, 3 slippery slope, 4 ad hominem circumstantial, 5 appeal to accident, 6 no fallacy, 7 false cause, 8 appeal to force, 9 bandwagon, 10 straw man, 11 weak analogy, 12 no fallacy, 13 red herring, 14 ad hominem abusive, 15 no fallacy, 16 missing the point, 17 appeal to unqualified authority, 18 either red herring or missing the point, 19 weak analogy, 20 ad hominem circumstantial, 21 no fallacy, 22 no fallacy, 23 tu quoque, 24 red herring or ad hominem abusive, 25 appeal to ignorance, 26 accident, 27 weak analogy, 28 false cause, 29 unqualified authority, and 30 slippery slope. So let me go over the answers to 3.3.1 a little bit more in depth. So 1 is a hasty generalization. It talks about 3 local teenagers and then generalizes to all teenagers. That sample size isn't large enough to make that generalization. 2 is a weak analogy. There's a key difference between a broken down car and a person suffering a heart attack. If the car breaks down, it can be repaired at a much later date, so it's not an emergency. If a person has a heart attack and they die, we can't resuscitate them at a much later date, so much more urgent. So there's a key dissimilarity, so it's a weak analogy. 3 is unqualified authority. Note, it's just 3 famous physicists, so other physicists reject it, so they're probably not going with the expert consensus there, so you can't appeal to the authority of just 3 of them. Also, note the difference between psychical research and physicists. So if you don't read carefully, like I didn't the first time I looked at this problem, you might have thought those were the same words, but psychical is different than physical, so it's also outside their area of expertise, possibly. 4 is slippery slope. That's pretty straightforward. One thing leading to the next, leading to the next. A lounge area probably will not lead to a racquetball court, tennis courts, and fitness centers for secretaries. 5 is no fallacy. That's sort of the way society works. If the pressure keeps building, eventually the people will revolt. Maybe we're beyond that point. Maybe no revolt is coming regardless of how much pressure is put on poor and working class people. But so it's either no fallacy if you think that it works like that, or somebody could start arguing that it's a weak analogy, but it would take an argument. 6 is false cause. There isn't any correlation between speeches and, well, sorry, there's only an alleged correlation between the that one speech and the earthquake. So the earthquake happened right after the speech, but that's not enough to show that there is a cause. We would need to demonstrate constant conjunction, that every time he gave speeches there would be earthquakes, but that's very unlikely. 7 is appeal to ignorance. Just because nobody has proven that it exists doesn't, from that we can't conclude that it's a myth. Now, for other reasons we might conclude that it's a myth, but just that no one's been able to prove that it's the case, we can't go from that to concluding that it is not the case. 8 is no fallacy. You might think it's an appeal to authority, but it's a legitimate appeal to authority. He's universally respected, author of the State and World Report. That's the sort of area of expertise we would want to talk about serious worldwide problems. 9 is hasty generalization. That's generalizing from a sample size of 2 to all wealthy people, which is many more. 10 is unqualified authority. He says it's for the nuclear program is for peaceful purposes, but he has a vested interest in getting people to believe that. So bias, so unqualified authority there. 11, no life exists on Venus. Teams of scientists conducted exhaustive research, but didn't find anything. That's no fallacy. You might think it would be appeal to ignorance because they didn't find anything, therefore we conclude that it doesn't exist. But if it's a team of scientists, their conclusions are likely to be the case. 12 is slippery slope. Animal rights activists getting their foot in the door, and then the starvation, we end at the starvation of the human race. Probably not. There are some links in here that probably are likely. If animal rights activists get their foot in their door, they will try to sell you on the idea that dog, cats, and dolphins have rights, and so do chickens and cows. That means no more chicken Kiev or prime rib. Insects and worms, probably not. That's usually a step beyond what animal rights activists are willing to go, because they might not be what some animal rights activists call the experiencing subject of the life, so maybe they don't have inherent value, or maybe they have much less, so that their rights aren't as strong. Anyways, that link from no chicken, Kiev, or prime rib to worms and insects is the unlikely link. 13, no one would buy a pair of shoes without trying them on. Why should anyone be expected to get married without premarital sex? If sex is a big part of a marriage, then this is a no fallacy, because you would want to make sure things were good there. If it's not such a big part of the marriage, then it's a weak analogy. Because fit is a very important part of shoes, so that's why you need to try them on. Is sex such an important part of marriage? It varies from marriage to marriage, so that depends. 14, appeal to ignorance. No one has proven that they're a danger. Sorry about that. No one has proven that they're a danger, therefore it's perfectly safe. That's saying no, just because no one has proven it doesn't mean that we can conclude that it's not the case. So that would be a classic appeal to ignorance. It's just that the evidence, the jury's still out, right? So 15, false cause. More churches and more crimes in New York City. So if we eliminate crime, if if we are going to eliminate crime, we must abolish the churches. This is saying there's a causal relationship between the churches and the amount of crime that the churches cause. The high amount of churches causes the high amount of crime. But they're probably both caused by a third factor, which is just the high population of New York City. So this is a false cause argument. If there are any that you would like me to cover in 3.3, you can go ahead and shoot me an email. I don't want to go through them all individually. 21 is no fallacy. The reason it's no fallacy is because that's an that's an argument from sympathy, and that's an appropriate time to have sympathy. And so it's not an appeal to pity, it's appropriate in that case. That might be the only difficult one that I see. 5 is accident, because I think the way to explain that would be if the reap what you sow is usually like a shorthand for saying what goes around comes around, or like karma, right? So if a farmer planted $8 per bushel soybeans and reaped $8 per bushel soybeans, then they would never profit. So they wouldn't be in business long, unless there were subsidies, which there often are. But still, that's the fallacy of accident. The others are all pretty straightforward. Hopefully this was helpful. I'll see you for the next lecture.